Welcome to Purposely Peaceful. My name is Jessica Rivera. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and a quantum hypnosis practitioner. I'm also a mom to 5, and I've been with my wonderful husband now for over 16 years, and we're passionate about living a life full of meaning and purpose. And while we're living this life, we want to make sure it's a peaceful life. For years, I wanted to create a space where I could share everything that I've learned as a therapist and as a hypnosis practitioner. But before I tell you exactly what I'm creating, I wanted to give you a little bit of a backstory so that you can get to know me and hear about the parts of my life that led me down this path. By nature, I was always an anxious child. My whole life, I just thought that I was nervous all the time. It wasn't until I was 21 and in college that I actually understood what anxiety was. Expressing emotions wasn't the norm. My environment was more about reacting than expressing. And as a naturally anxious person, I sought to do the very things that would trigger me. It was my very own version of exposure therapy, except I had no concept of what that was. Long story short, it led to many decisions. Some might call them mistakes. I never saw my choices as mistakes. They were just lessons. Fast forward some years, and I became a mom, a young mom at that. The person that I had chosen to be with had always been problematic. It was no surprise when I found myself stuck in an abusive relationship. Before I knew it, my little family grew, and now, with 3 little kids to depend on me, I couldn't keep going down the path that we were going. My kids were my motivation and my realization that we deserved a better life. This is when my healing journey began. It was the hardest period of my life. And although there were other parts of my life where I had experienced trauma, those were out of my control. But this relationship was in my control. This relationship was something that I allowed, and I allowed myself to become powerless. And it was a really long 6 years trying to save someone that didn't want to be saved. I really was trying to make it work because I felt that that's what a good mom would do. Towards the end of that relationship, I briefly worked with a therapist. It was only for a few sessions, but in those sessions, I gained a lot of clarity about what I did and didn't want. We came up with a plan, and a year later, we were able to move out of that environment. Thankfully, we were able to move back in with some family. And in this first year that I spent as a single mom, one of the things that I was really sure about was that I never wanted to be in a situation where I allowed anyone to treat me like that again. It was this experience that motivated me to take control of my life. And in order to do that, I really needed to understand myself. I spent years blaming this person for the pain that I went through and for what my kids witnessed. I knew deep down what he did was wrong, and I'm not justifying his behavior, but I wanted to share what my role was in that relationship. I tolerated everything. I let him get away with things, and I constantly put up with behaviors that weren't healthy. When he made mistakes, I'd be the one to step in and fix things, to save him from the mess he'd gotten himself into. For the longest time, I felt powerless. I let my self-esteem disappear. I had lost hope, trying to keep everything as normal as possible for the kids. Looking back, the reason that I allowed myself to be treated this way was because I didn't understand my own worth. I was so young, I didn't even realize that this was a problem. So I spent a lot of time healing. Little by little, I began to heal and make peace with what I had experienced and regained some sense of control over my anxiety. I had to find this inner strength within me that, frankly, I didn't even know that I had. I really began to heal and get my life back into a place that felt healthy. This experience is what it took for me to wake up and finally put myself first, because I needed to be well so that my kids could be well. I was committed to getting our lives back on track. I knew that I needed to be able to financially provide for my kids. And so, one of the things that I did was I went back to college. And for several years, I worked and I went to school. And I remember in order to get everything done, I would put my kids to bed by 8:30 p.m. And while they slept is when I would work on my homework. And sometimes I would be staying up until like 1 a.m. And I did this for so many nights. And I remember they would wake up 6:30 in the morning. I'd get them ready for school, and then they'd start the day. And it was just this cycle that we lived for a period of time. Eventually, I got to the point where I got my bachelor's degree in psychology, and then shortly thereafter, a couple years after that, I got my master's in counseling and marriage and family therapy. I'll be honest, it's been a hard but truly rewarding career. I love to learn about different healing methods, whether it's different types of therapy perspectives, different methods of hypnosis regression, Reiki courses, herbal medicine, you name it. I have found it really helpful in my life to spend time trying to understand myself, trying to process this journey that I've been on, and taking that time to heal. I don't only do this work for myself, I also have the privilege of being able to help other people on their path, on their healing journey. As a lifelong learner, which means I believe I will continue to learn for the rest of my life about whatever sparks my curiosity. If you know me, I have the most random things I want to learn about. And on my journey of curiosity, it led me to become a quantum hypnosis practitioner. Now, you might be wondering, what is quantum hypnosis? At its core, it's a method that helps people tap into their own inner guidance. And every single person will have their own unique experience, but hypnosis is a powerful tool that helps you access what your subconscious is ready to share with you. Whether it's memories, past lifetimes, or deeper insights, it's all about what you need in that moment. For those of you familiar with therapy, you'll know that it's often about uncovering why we do what we do, really trying to understand the patterns and the beliefs that drive our behavior. In that way, therapy and hypnosis are connected, but they are distinct in their purposes. Therapy is a gradual process of self-discovery where you explore your thoughts and your behaviors over time. Hypnosis, on the other hand, is a more direct approach. For many, this allows them to bypass all of that time trying to figure something out, and instead be able to drive straight into the source of your subconscious mind. And for the past 5 years, I've been trying to ignore this nudge that it's time to share everything that I've learned. I've learned so much about how we process emotions, how our bodies carry them, and the profound impact our minds can have on our lives. One of the most surprising lessons I've discovered is that suffering is so much harder than doing the inner work to heal. Yep, suffering is harder than doing the inner work. Sometimes people struggle to picture this, but it's true. Witnessing clients recognizing it for themselves has been an incredible experience to be a part of. Life doesn't have to be difficult unless you want it to be. Something I tell my clients is that you can either go through life kicking and screaming, resisting what's best for you, fighting it, or you can choose to do the work. I don't know about you, but I don't want to feel stressed, overwhelmed, angry, or sad all the time. I've been there, I've done that, and I don't want that. Let me share with you what really set the wheels in motion for me. I was seeking relief from the pressure of life, thinking that if I accomplished my goals, then I'd finally feel better. I believed that if I could change some things in my external world, then I'd finally feel some sense of emotional relief. I used to think, well, when I finish this degree, I'll finally feel better. If I get a new job, then for sure we'll be good. If we buy a house, then I'll feel like we've made it. If we buy a bigger house, then we'll all be happy. But these feelings always faded away, and one day a mentor brought it to my attention that I can call it all these names, projects, whatever, but in reality, what I was looking for was inner peace. And so this feeling of I'm going to feel better, I'll finally be happy, that's not what I was looking for. What I was actually looking for was inner peace. And as you can imagine, I became obsessed with becoming purposely peaceful. So for the past 20 years, whether I consciously realized it or not, I started to do the inner work and change the way that I approached life. And while on this journey, I finally realized that my life wasn't about accomplishments, it was about finding peace. This perspective changed the trajectory of my life. My life was no longer about goals. This was the clarity and direction that I needed to change my life and operate from a place of peace. Inner peace is the result of removing all the mental, emotional layers that cloud our minds. After years of working on myself and helping clients on their journey to peace, I felt the call to create a space where I could share all of the wisdom that I have learned. That's why I created Purposely Peaceful. I want to share with you what I've seen leads to profound healing and the ability to handle life's curveballs. We can face difficult moments, stress, and struggles with peace because without it, life is so much harder. Becoming purposely peaceful isn't about being in a state of peace and being zen all the time. It's about learning how to access that part of us when we need it. It's about becoming resilient and cultivating a skill so that we can experience life a little bit easier. Instead of having a bad day, maybe you just have a bad few minutes. I want you to imagine the possibility that you can be completely stressed, overwhelmed, and anxious and feel like your life is in complete chaos, and then, in a few moments, be able to shift into peace. And you just sit with it for a few moments, and then you feel a little bit better, and then you go back into whatever it is that you need to attend to, but you're calm and you're coming from a place of peace. You are the most rational version of yourself. And I'm not saying that the path to becoming purposely peaceful doesn't mean that you're not going to feel any emotions. No, in fact, it's going to have a lot of emotions. It's probably going to have more emotions than you expected. And that's just part of the human experience. These emotions are part of what guide us and help us understand ourselves even further. We all have the ability to tap into inner peace, and that's what I want to show you here, are actionable steps, things that you can actually implement in your life. I want to share with you new perspectives that you can actually apply in your life so that you can start to get to that place within you. My goal and intention is to live my highest potential in this life. That is my goal, to live out my highest potential, and I want to be happy and stress-free while I try. I want to be purposely peaceful, and I hope that you want that for yourself too. The journey to becoming the best version of ourselves wasn't always meant to be easy, but we can choose to be purposely peaceful while we try. This is your invitation to walk with me on the path of being purposely peaceful. Life will get messy and loud and overwhelming sometimes, but peace is always within reach. It's not something that you have to earn. It's not something that you have to remember. It's already within you. This show is for all of us on the pursuit of inner peace. Thank you so much for taking the time to get to know me. Thanks for spending a little time with me today. I hope something here met you right where you are. This podcast is for inspiration only and not a substitute for therapy. Please reach out to a licensed professional if you need support. I'll catch you on the next one.